Welcome to this accident investigation procedure module. In the previous module, we had gone through about the accident and related facts about the accident, various outcomes of accident, accident causation theories, and accident investigation protocol. So, as we had studied earlier that the accident investigation protocol having the 6 step, and in the previous module we have studied first 2 steps of this accident investigation protocol. Now let us have a look about the third step. Now this third step involves the assess the future accident potential. Now in this particular step, this particular process involves the assessment of the future loss potential. Now it helps to assign priorities of corrective action that we may recommend or we will recommend, and it helps us to seal the need of any improvement, and it gives the suggestive measures for those improvements to the upper management. Now loss severity can be thought of in 3 different classes: Class A, Class B and Class C. The Class A represents the potential for major injuries or damage, the Class B for the serious injuries or damage, and Class C for the minor injuries or damage. So let us have a look about the Class A hazard, that is major one. Condition or practice likely to cause the permanent disability, loss of life, that means fatality, loss of body part, or extensive property loss or damage. Let us have an example that an unguarded machine with the potential to amputate a finger or hand, an unprotected floor opening that could lead to a fall from an elevation greater than 10 feet and badly worn brakes on a motor vehicle that could lead to an intersection collision. Now let us have a look about the Class B hazard, that is serious. The Class B hazard represents a condition or a practice that could cause serious injury or illness such as a temporary disability or a property damage that is serious but less severe than those we have clubbed under the Class A. The example is the unguarded floor opening that may lead to a fall from an elevation of less than say 10 feet. An unguarded pinch points in a machine that may lead to a serious problem or broken bones but not amputation, and the work protocols that allow an employee to move 4-liter drum without any assistance. Let us have a look about the Class C hazard, those clubbed under the head of minor one. A Class C hazard is minor in nature and is likely to cause non-disabling injuries or illness or non-destructive property damage. For example, the use of a chemical that may cause dermatitis without the practice of using gloves or barrier creams, a process that creates dust, but worker practices do not call for the use of any kind of ventilation or the wearing of any eye goggles, etc. Let us have a look about the step number 4. Now this step 4 involves the correcting the causes. Now in order to make the corrective action successful, one need to have a corrective action for each and every root causes which we have identified. However, more than one control may be needed for each root cause depending on the circumstances. Now the control hit list is the simple tool that spells out the desired level of controls available so that the best type of control may be selected as first choice, and so that one consider all the possible controls without just reaching for the most obvious one. Now, if the corrective actions are not likely to be implemented right away because maybe of the variety reason, because of such things as a large expenditure of money, or may require a redesign of a workstation or a workplace, or purchase of a different equipment or machinery. Now, it is advantageous to propose and implement the short term solution that will minimize the immediate risk. So, the force field analysis being carried out. Now, this force field analysis is simply a visual tool that helps us to realize that for every restraining force, we must identify and implement an opposing counteracting force. So, let us have a look about the control hit list. Now, it helps to think of control in 6 different categories. Now, they are listed in priority order with the most effective control at the top and the least effective control at the bottom. So, this may be because some categories have proven more effective than others. So, these are the like elimination of hazard. This is the most effective control, but you can't eliminate all hazard at the workplace. So, you can minimize those hazards. Now, minimization may be achieved by the substitution of a less hazardous material. Number 3 may be use of proper engineering controls. You may use the administrative control. Sometimes this administrative control may be included like controlled zones, adopting the protocol of the controlled zones, so that the common people or those who are not required that workplace, they may be cordoned off to go into the controlled zone. So, these are some of the example of use of administrative control. Then use of personal protective equipments, PPE, and then the training of the employees. So, once the causes have been found, the key is to always consider the controls at the top of the list and work their way down. So, sometimes it may be somewhat rare to actually eliminate the hazard. Now, it is essential to always start with this particular possibility. So, if you recall, in the industrial hygiene chapter, we have discussed the 4 basic protocols like substitution, attenuation, isolation, etc. Now, it is not unusual to combine more than one control for the same hazard, particularly when the controls chosen are low on this particular list, like combine employee training with the use of personal protective equipment, etc. Now, let us have a look about the 5th step, that is the statistics on occupational accident. Now, the statistics of factories or industries is collected. They are compiled by the labor department on the basis of annual returns reports with respect to the Factories Act 1948, and they are furnished by the state and union territories. Now, this is very important, that is under the Factories Act 1948, the injuries resulting from any industrial establishment under the head of industrial accident, by reason of which the person injured is prevented from attending to work for a period of say 48 hours or more immediately following the accident, they are recorded. So, it gives a proper data, so that it in future when you are analyzing those accidents may be used as a future reference. Now, the important indices on injuries are frequency rate, that is FR, and incidence rate, that is IR. Now, the frequency rate is defined as number of total injuries per 1 lakh man days worked, this one, and the incidence rate is the number of injuries per 1000 worker employed in those factories or establishments. Then there is a report of data and recommendations. So, all accidents to employees, however may be minor, should be recorded. That is very important. Now, this is a requirement under the social security legislation. So, all near misses, incidents and accidents, they should be reported, no matter how slight they may appear. So, fatal accident, this may include the fatal accident, accidents causing the major injuries, notifiable accidents and dangerous occurrence, reportable accidents and a dangerous occurrence, and some written records. So the company usually encourages the employee to report all accident no matter how minor, and sometimes they fail. The reason is that if the accidents are reported in a proper manner, then the chances of paying compensation in terms of economy may be on the higher side. So accidents that involve very minor injuries like small cuts, non-extensive bruises, etc., and would not normally require any action on behalf of the company, like the breaking of a drinking glass, etc. So they do not have to be reported, although employee could report them if they want. So the quality of accident sampling is essential. Now, on the other hand, the accidents that involve or could have involved more severe injuries and they may require the investigation and action from the company must be dutifully reported. So, as a result of a workplace injury, an employee may need to claim for benefits in future, and the relevant checks will be made to confirm that the accident occurred at workplace. Now, the employer need to be sure that they satisfy all legal reporting requirements for the employees and non-employees and take the measure to monitor those accidents. So, that is crucial as far as the employer perspective is concerned. Now, accidents happen for a reason. It could be machine failure, unsafe work practice, or a poor housekeeping. But reporting these occurrences can help identifying the cause and help prevent this accident reoccurring. So, as a part of the reactive monitoring process, accident records are needed to assess whether the existing controls are adequate, or they need to identify if trends are developing. Then sometimes it may give a very vital information. It is just like that if the rise in temperature is recorded in any reactor, then it may be a serious thing. So, it helps us to identify if any kind of trend is developing and to implement any kind of new procedure. Now, the record may also be produced for the health and safety executive, to the parents or a guardian, or in course of civil proceeding if a claim is brought following an incident. Now, reporting and recording procedures they vary from organization to organization as the procedures are different. Usually, the most effective way of reporting incident accident is through a specific reporting form. So, the design of that particular form is important. Now, the form should contain a detailed description of incident, the person and a task involved, injuries obtained, any kind of medical treatment is given to them, and witness statement if they are available. Sometimes people are a bit reluctant to give any kind of witness statement. Now, if a possible picture of the scene, they should be included. If the investigation team is able to get any kind of picture, then they should be included. So, all reports should be submitted to the management as soon as possible, so the incident can be investigated. Now, let us have a look about the basic feature of the form. Now, usually the form is divided into some of the general sections to cover all relevant information. Now, these sections may include the section 1 may be the background, section 2 the description of a detailed description of the accident, the section 3 may be the finding of the investigating team. The section 4 is the recommendations being suggested by the investigation team. Section 5th will be the summary, and section 6th may have the follow up actions, and section 7 may include the comment, and various kind of attachments may be used for the reference of this particular report. Now, the important thing is that you need to document the facts only. Now, determine if the corrective action applies to more than one employee, more than one job function, or more than one shift, etc. Then the prioritize the corrective action based on future accident potential. You may submit the both short term and long term solution if required. Let us have an example now, if employees are exposed to an excessive vapor concentration, a short term control may be the wearing the personal protective equipment, while the long term control may be by the installing a ventilation system. Now, let us have a look about the sixth step, that is the last step, that is recommend corrective action and improvement. Now, this step is actually implement the corrective action identified and recommended through the accident investigation process. Now, it is essential that long term solution do not get lost in shuffle and get implemented as originally planned. So, over time the effectiveness of the controls we have chosen can be assessed through such means such as employee interviews, job safety analysis, and finally the presence of lack of additional accident and incidents from the same causes. Now, to make the corrective action, various control strategies can be used. One is the engineering control. This helps in eliminating or reducing hazard through equipment redesign and replacement, substitution, attenuation, isolation, etc. Then the management control, it helps in eliminating or reducing exposure to hazard by controlling employee behavior. The third one is the interim measures. This includes the strategies that are used as a temporary fix while permanent controls are being developed. Now, various improvements should be made to policies, programs, plans, processes and procedures in order to have proper and better investigation and less accidents. Now, it can be done within one or more of the following elements that safety management system, like managerial commitment, employee involvement, proper hazard identification control, proper training and education, then incident and accidental analysis by adopting the proper system evaluation protocol, then by fixing the accountability, etc. Now, the making a system improvement might include some of the following things, like including the safety in a mission statement, because you may find that in several good organization there is a mission statement and there is a vision statement. So, the safety may include in the mission statement. Now, improving safety policy so that it clearly establishes the responsibility and accountability. The changing a training plan to include using checklist, because checklist is a very vital source of finding the problems within the system. Revising the purchasing policy to include safety consideration as well as the cost. So, one example is that sometimes you may give allowances to the raw material contamination, because sometimes the contaminants may create a future problem in further reaction. So, you may revise, because sometimes the account section may seek that you should compromise with 5%, 6% purity of that particular component. So, you may revise the purchasing policy. Now, the changing the safety inspection process to include all supervisors and employees. Now, the investigation system should be examined from time to time to check that it consistently delivers the information in accordance with the stated objectives and standards. Now, this usually requires that checking samples of investigation forms to verify the standards of investigation and the judgment made about the causation and the prioritization of remedial actions. Sometimes checking the number of incident, near misses, injury or all ill health events. Now, checking that all events are being reported. That is very important. Now, sometimes these accident investigation fails. So, why these accident investigations fail? The investigation system should be modified time to time in order to avoid the failure of accident investigation. And some of the reason of the failures maybe like investigation is stopped short and didn't reveal the root cause of the accident. There was no time to complete the accident investigation. There was no motivation towards the completeness of that particular accident investigation. There was a lack of accountability, lack of skill and knowledge. So, all these factors they are involved to the failure of accident investigation. Now, let us have a look about the accident prevention. Now, accident can be prevented by early detection, reporting and abating. So, let us have a look about the various steps involved like hazard identification. Detection, identification of hazard before they cause injuries is important. Now, to accomplish this, conduct the periodic walk around inspection looking for items maybe such that like slip, trip or fall hazards, maybe across, maybe wire across or a walkway. Sometimes you may observe the broken damaged equipments, for example, a stool with a broken leg. Sometimes you may observe the machinery with a missing guard like cutting machine with a missing blade guard. Sometimes you may experience the exposed electrical wiring, maybe frayed electrical cord. Sometimes you may experience that there is a damage of personal protective equipments like gloves with rips or tears, etc. So, this may create a problem. Second is the step is the report the hazard. So, once hazard have been identified, they need to be reported to the appropriate area. That is that for example, the broken floor tile that could cause a trip and fall, that should be reported to the maintenance section for repairing. The safety officer, safety committee or maintenance department should keep a log of those items reported and follow up to ensure the hazard reported have been corrected. So, this is again important issue. Then third one is that the hazard abatement. The hazard abatement can be defined as the elimination or reduction of a safety hazard by complying with the applicable safety and health standards or taking equivalent protective measures. So, take the step necessary to abate hazard. Now, this will provide a safer environment for employees, contractor, visitors, etc. Now, here are some ways to prevent the accidents. One is to ensure the work areas they are not cluttered and trash is removed regularly, because this lead to the good housekeeping. Now, provide the necessary training, retraining of all employees. Now, ensure that necessary controls they are in place like machine guarding, etc. Administrative controls they are well in place like labels, sign, placards, etc. The personal protective gears they are in place like safety goggles, mask, etc. Now, have spill clean up immediately, that is a very good housekeeping practice. Ensure proper lifting, carrying techniques they are being used. One must ensure that mechanical handling equipment is being used properly. One may ensure that walking working surfaces they all are free of slip, trip and fall hazard. One must ensure that safety rules, policies and procedures they are well implemented. You may ensure that safety inspection they are being conducted regularly. So, in summary, we may say that the regulatory requirement for investigating workplace incident and dangerous occurrence, you must collect all evidences for an investigation, analyze all evidences for an investigation. You must develop a workplace investigation report, a proper workplace investigation report or detailed workplace specification, workplace investigation report. Now you take the action following a workplace investigation report. So, in this particular chapter, we have discussed about the accident investigation protocol, what are the different key factors, what are the different theories involved, and how we can present the report, how we can go for the follow up action, etc. Now, if you wish to have further reading, then we have enlisted a large number of references for your convenience. You can go through all those references. Thank you.